get started. I think people will join as we go, and we're recording this webcast so we can make it available on the Midwest Invasive Plant Network website, and people who weren't able to attend today will be able to listen in later. So with that, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Kate Howe. I'm the director of the Midwest Invasive Plant Network. We're part of Purdue University, located in Indianapolis, and we are a collaborative group that includes people from across the region. Here's just a little bit of background on our organization before we get started on the content for today. I think most of the people I see here on the list are familiar with the Midwest Invasive Plant Network, but our mission is to reduce the impacts of invasive plants in the Midwest, and we work throughout the 8 states that you see highlighted on the map here. We aren't on the ground doing invasive plant control work, but the things we do are to try to facilitate collaboration among organizations and agencies working on invasive plants throughout the region. We work to educate the public about invasive plants through conferences, publications, and our website and listserv. And we also provide tools and information to support natural resource managers who want to know more about what they might be finding in the field and how to deal with it. I encourage you, if you haven't visited our website, to go to mipn.org, and I also encourage all of you to consider becoming members. It costs $30 for the year, and you get discounts at our conferences, including the upcoming Upper Midwest Invasive Species Conference, which will be held in Duluth in October, and you help support work like this webcast today. So I'm going to pass off the microphone to Mark Renz. Our 3 speakers today are Mark Renz from University of Wisconsin, Chuck Bargeron from the University of Georgia, and Kathy Smith from Ohio State University. They're all going to be talking about different aspects of the Great Lakes Early Detection Network app, and especially the new features that have just been added. Chuck is primarily going to be keeping an eye on the chat box and answering questions, so if you have questions during the conference.
Thanks, Kate. It's a pleasure to be here. Just to make sure our technology is working, please, if everyone could just type in and make sure if you could hear me okay, or if I need to speak up or increase the volume. Sounds like I'm a little quiet. Okay, I'll try and get this a little bit closer. It sounds like it's okay. Okay, well, great. Well, thanks for joining me on a Monday morning in June. I know we'd probably all rather be out in the field, but we wanted to make sure and give an update on to what's going on with this new app. I'd like to start off by kind of giving a little bit of background of where we've been with the Great Lakes Early Detection Network. Was kind of the initial thrust that we had into working with trying to detect and hopefully trying to promote early detection and rapid response for invasive species. And a lot of partners were involved in initially creating GLEDN, and there's the website for GLEDN that you could see here. And really, when we talked about GLEDN, really it became clear that we really needed 2 main goals. And the first goal was really to facilitate sharing of invasive species information, because that was a really big limitation. When I go to the next slide here, you can look at the boundaries for the Great Lakes Early Detection area, and you can see it's quite a large area, and we have a lot of different people that are collecting information about early detection and rapid early detection of invasive species. A lot of the southern and western states are EDDMapS facilitated, but we have a large group in Wisconsin that are working on a range of species, from GLFWIC to our Department of Agriculture and Department of Natural Resources. We have in Michigan, MISN, lots of other groups. This is just a very small list. And so it became clear to us that we really needed to work on collaboration and facilitating sharing of this information amongst these and other groups of people too. And that was one of the primary missions. Although one of the secondary missions was also to help try and get more information from people. So what is the data in GLEDN to date? We have over 750,000 records from over 15 data providers. So we think that's been a success story in itself. Most of the information has come from our partners, and so we like to acknowledge these partners and their willingness to become involved in this process. I will point out that GLEDN, people can report directly to GLEDN, but only 1,000 of those 789,000 records are from those GLEDN-specific responses. So most of the data is coming from bulk uploads from some of our partners, either into GLEDN, or people are uploading into EDDMapS or MISN or other groups, and that data is then coming into GLEDN too. And we think those are all neat aspects of GLEDN, and I think it's worked well. And I think that's part of the success that we have seen with this early detection network. And so just to show you this is a picture of the website, the Great Lakes Early Detection Network website, www.gledn.org. And what you can see here is we're really trying to facilitate this data sharing amongst groups and giving groups credit for when they're sharing data, but we're also trying to help make it easier to report data. And other groups and other partners have this as well. We have this big orange button here where you can click on to report a new invasive species. You know, and that was really our goal, is to try to not only collect the data sharing and share data, but also get new reports in there. But what we realized after 2 years of this project is that, you know, it's difficult for people to report new invasive species by going to a website. They have to remember where they were, go to the website afterwards. If they have to take a picture, get GPS coordinates, or have an understanding where they are on the map. And we really think that some of those really led to some of the limitations of people actually using the website to report these species. And so this is kind of some of the reasons why we've moved forward with creating the app. Is it was just too time-consuming, too laborious for people to report via the website, particularly with new infestations that are unique. And that's one of the real goals of this network and of all of our partners, is to get these new infestations documented into the hands of people that can cause an action. And so that's really why we created this app, to help facilitate reporting. And when I want to emphasize, it was it was many individuals that created this application. You know, clearly Chuck Bargeron with Bugwoods, or the Center for Invasive Ecosystem Health in Georgia, you know, were the people that actually developed this application. We had considerable support from The Ohio State University, and also did get some funding from Wisconsin DNR and their citizen science network. So a lot of people involved in collating money so they can have this application that fits. I want to emphasize that this app is functional on both Android and on Apple products, smartphones and tablets. And really, it's able to report invasive species across taxa, not just plants, which is going to be my focus in this presentation, because that's my area of expertise. So lots of different invasive species that you are able to report. And I want to emphasize at the bottom there, you do see that there is a URL to download this app. You can simply go in and type GLEDN, G-L-E-D-N, and Bugwood, and you will get a link to this if any of your search engines. Easy to download so that you can play with it. And I'd emphasize playing with it because it does take a little bit of time to get familiar with the process. But once you're up to speed, I can make a report in less than 30 seconds. And so it is really an efficient way to make new sightings when you do see them. So why are we focusing on smartphones? Well, I think that you guys probably all know this, that these smartphones contain all the required pieces of information: a GPS unit, a camera, a place to take notes, research material and reference materials. We easily can forget one of these aspects when going out into the field, but the beauty is this smartphone has all of these built in one system. And I think the most important aspect that Chuck will admit is that while people can easily forget a GPS unit or their camera or a notebook, people rarely forget their smartphone when they're going into the field. And so that's really a huge benefit to focusing on this smartphone technology, and really one of the best issues. And again, without belaboring this, our goal is to, by using these smartphones, quickly get a response of a new infestation, get it into our servers. Those servers will then send it out to our verifiers. It will verify that that report is in actuality correct. And then those people are going to get that information into the hands of the people on the ground locally that can cause a response. And that's really the ultimate goal. While obviously we don't have the control of many times of the response, that's our goal in the development of this technology. So this was launched in 2013, this app, and we just recently updated it this spring. And what I want to just simply do is spend a little bit of time overviewing how this works, what information, how to report an observation, and how to view this, some of the information here, and highlight some of the new features that we've really done, and Chuck's really done a great job in updating this. Highlight how you can use some of this information in this presentation. And I can't emphasize enough that really the key is to download this and to experiment with it quite a bit, and you'll get very familiar with it and be able to use it very efficiently. So one of the first additions that you'll notice is when you open up this application, you will see that they've changed that splash page or introductory page where they have these logos and these little icons here. And I think this will really help streamline where some of these things look. I'll warn you that it does look a little bit different under Android versus the Apple products, and Chuck can maybe give a brief typing of why that is, or explain what that is if you have questions. But this makes it super efficient on how to navigate to where you need to go. So I'm going to simply go through some of these features, but before I do, I want to emphasize, if you look in the lower right hand corner, the EDDMapS login, and you are required to log in order to make a report using this smartphone application. It is free, and I'll walk you through why that is in a second. You can experiment with it without a login, but you cannot actually upload a report without the login too. And you may think, oh great, I have to remember another password. Well, it's actually not that bad. You only have to remember it once when you're typing it in, and then the app remembers that login after that. So that's really useful. And I think there are some other benefits to having a login as well. It allows you to track the observations that you've made and to edit them on the EDDMapS website over time. So you can see what you've observed over time and edit some of those if they in fact do change. Groups can also use this as a benefit. One of the changes and updates we made it is we're working with a lot of first detector networks. So as you can see on the left, when you register, you have the ability to type in what organization or company that you're working with, and then if you're a first detector, you just need to turn on that button and actually click what state you're from. So this allows you to document some of the, if you're working with a group, what the impact some of that group is having. Things like number of species and type of species reported. We can calculate percent of correct reports, area surveyed, and even time spent surveying. So this can be a real big benefit if you're working with a lot of volunteers or other groups and want to try and come up with some of this information. I think that's how we're really excited about some of this technology with our first detector program in Wisconsin. Okay, so now going over the first area, if you wanted to submit an observation of a species, you click on this species by category, and up will pop this window. We've categorized these species across a range of taxa. If we were to scroll down, you would see some of the insects and animals and diseases. We're again just focusing on plants here. I want to emphasize there's a lot of information in here. We have over 100 species that are in these various categories, but I also want to emphasize it is not a comprehensive list. This is a very large application. I believe it's 100 megabytes as it is right now, and so we're really trying to limit some of the key species that are present on this list. If the species is not on this list, we encourage you to use the website, because that is a much more comprehensive list. Another neat feature, though, if you don't want to go through these categories, don't know if your species is a shrub or a tree, or may not know the category, is you can search. And so if you click on this All Species tab, you can actually search either by common name or scientific name for that species of interest, too. So it's a really neat feature that allows you to quickly get to that species of interest. And I want to emphasize on the far right of each of these species name, you'll see that little eye with a circle around it. And that eye is a button that you can touch to gain more information on that species. And I'm going to show that to you in a second. But that's really an important button because it also allows you to create a personalized list. If you would look on that splash page or first page, where you can create a personalized list for which species are actually you're detecting, and so it can be a way to more efficiently get at that. So if I were to click on that I button, this next slide is going to be what you would see. You would have the options, like if you look in the lower left-hand side, what you can see is you can see here a little info. If you're going to click on the text info, you would actually see a detailed piece of information, of text on how to identify this. Really useful if you're not certain if this is cheatgrass. You can look at some of the botanical descriptions of it to make sure you're on the same page. Or much more importantly, what a lot of people have, if you want to click on this image button here on the right, you can then scroll through a good set of images that are present on the bugword network to really try and ensure and validate that in fact is the plant species you think it is. And then when you want to go to map it, you're convinced it is, you would click on the map icon, which you can see on the right and also on the left as well there too. So really good information that makes it key. If you want to add it to your special list, you click on the upper right-hand corner, add to my list, and then there's a special icon on that initial splash page that would allow you to add it to that list as well. So lots of options that are present there. Okay, let's say we've picked on the species and we've decided which species we're going to want to report. You would just click on the species name to get there, and up would come this page. And there's a lot of things going on in this page here. You can actually, I'm going to first focus on the GPS location. So when you get on this page, your smartphone or tablet is automatically calculating your latitude and longitude and accuracy of that GPS location. There's nothing you need to do for that. Also, you have the ability above that to add a picture. You can add a picture to this report. We highly, highly, highly recommend that you add a picture because that allows verifiers to actually verify that this report is actually correct. If you were to click on this button right here, it would get you to your camera. You would take a picture. It asks if you want to use that picture. If that's a good enough picture, it's not blurry, go ahead and click use it, and it's automatically saved with this GPS location embedded into that image. So that's really a neat feature. Also, one of the new additions that we've added is we have a time spent monitoring field that we've added to this, where you can actually add how much time it is you spend in actually surveying this. There's a default setting of 5 minutes that's actually added to this. And then finally, there's other places where you can add other information about the size of infestation, the density, and some of the other issues too. There's also a section that you can actually personally type in notes. So in this case, we have Phragmites here. One of the neat things that you may want to report is it the native Phragmites or not the native Phragmites, or if you know, or did you do any management of this, or some useful information on identifying it. What I like to emphasize is that it is very easy to make a report. In less than a minute, you can do this. You really are only required to get to this page and then click Save, and a report will be uploaded into the queue. So some of this information is not required to make that report, but again, we would heavily recommend that you take a picture and associate it with that location, because that helps assist us in the identification. And if you can add this other information, it is highly useful. If you were going to report some insects or diseases, I just will point out that some of this information, like example down here, does change a little bit to associate with that taxonomic information. And so that is something that is a little bit different. And then if you were to look up here, if you actually took the report at a different date than is the date you're using that smartphone application, you can click on that report timestamp and you can actually correct for that. Probably not many people are going to be doing that, but that is an opportunity as well. I would emphasize, and I see in the text here people are talking about this, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, if you can make a report if you do not have cell phone reception and it's uploaded into the queue, and that's one of the real neat benefits of this app. So one of the things we've also added is some advanced features for mapping. And I want to emphasize that they are advanced features, and so we want to make sure that people using this are familiar with those advanced, that are able to report and comfortable with those advanced features. So we've kind of hidden it a little bit of where some of these features are, and I think that's a good thing. So really, if you want to access these, you have to click on this advanced mapping feature icon that we have here. And that will bring you up into another field that will allow you to move and manually place that point. So say you're at the top of a ridge, you don't really want to walk down to a ridge to make a detection. You'll allow it to manually move that point, as I'll show you, or some of the polygon features as just draw an infested area. So let's pretend we're going to click on that one icon right here, and then we're going to go and show you what that next page actually looks like. And so if you then look on your left here, this is what would come up when you click on your icon. It's showing you a picture, your lat longe degrees, and it's showing you right here is where you are located according to your GPS unit. So let's say, for instance, well, I'm right here. I see this is an autumn olive over here, and I would like to, instead of walking over there, I'm inherently lazy. I would like to actually just tell my GPS unit to mark this location as over there. I can simply click right here where that image is with my finger on my smartphone or tablet. And as you can see over here on the right, it would then move that dot to be over there. And if you look closely, you can see that lat and longitude directionality and degrees has changed ever so slightly to indicate that new location. So a little bit of an advanced feature that allows you to move that feature. Then when you're done and you're comfortable with that, you can click done, and then that will be saved, and you would go back to the other screen where you can then upload it into the queue by pressing the save button too. So fairly simple feature, but it can be useful in saving you some time if using this technique. The probably more advanced feature is the polygon feature, which is brand new. And so again, the difference here is if you look closely, if you were to click on polygon versus point, it puts you into this different mode. And with polygons, you can actually you have two options. You can draw by placing a number of points down in a pattern to create the polygon, or the other option would be is you can actually manually sketch it with your finger. And we're going to go over both those options. If you wanted to put down a series of points, you would simply click on the points tab up here you see on the left, and then you would be in this mode where you would then place one dot down on the right, and then as I go to the next screen, you're going to see I'm going to place a series of dots down, and it's going to auto-generate a polygon from those series of dots that I put down. And I'll show you that now on the next screen. As you see on the left here, I started with that one dot, I placed another dot, and then I just sequentially continue to place dots. And then as you can see over on the right, it auto fills in and creates a polygon. The key to this feature and using this feature correctly is when you're getting ready to use this, you have to already be zoomed in to encompass that entire area that you want to demarc with that polygon. Because once you start putting points down, you're not able to zoom in and out that map. The second important point to remember is you need to select points or put them down in a consistent order, either clockwise or counterclockwise. If you start putting them down randomly or not in an order, you will not get a very consistent polygon, and it's going to look more like a star shaped, and you're going to have to redraw that too. It's easy to redraw it. You can simply press clear and try again, and again, this is where a little bit of practice comes into play, and it can work fairly well, and you can get pretty accurate. As you can see up here, it gives you an approximate acre and area that you actually observed as well. So it can be pretty efficient. The dot or point method works really good when you have a fairly uniform area like a circle or a square. It doesn't work nearly as well in linear areas, right-of-ways, or bizarre shapes. Now, if you wanted to manually sketch that, say it was a right-of-way, it's some similar methodology but different. I'll briefly go over it. You click on the sketch mark right here. Click there in the bottom section of your screen, And then but before you do that, you want to make sure and zoom that map in, like I said before, to encompass the entire area. You want to touch the screen, then remove your finger. And then what you need to do, and it can be really challenging, is then once you remove that finger, you're going to get a dot. You need to retouch that dot again. And in a smartphone, depending on the size of your screen, and the size of your fingers, that can be a very difficult endeavor. And so when you touch that dot again for the second time, what you will see is you will see the screen actually move. And will actually move up so that you can visually see where you're sketching. That's an indication that you've actually touched the screen correctly. Touch that point correctly. If that screen in fact moves, then you can simply draw and sketch that across that desired area. When you're done, you can simply remove your finger and it will just connect a line to that initial point. It does take some practice to do this, and so I would recommend highly that you practice it. If you do not see that screen move, that means that you did not successfully touch that point, and you just need to remove your finger and try to do that again too. It does take some practice, so that I would recommend doing this several times. There is the clear button that you can do if you don't like the pattern that you saw. Again, zooming in to scale is something that's going to be an issue. That's going to really be helpful. If you're doing a very large area, you might want to consider breaking it up into 2 different sections so you can zoom into the appropriate scale. When you're happy with what that is, you simply click Done, and then you would save it when you get back to that other screen too. So, and again, it comes up with the approximate acres as well too. So it can be a useful tool that can facilitate that. Again, probably the biggest limitation with this polygon feature is that you're limited by the size of your screen. So if you're in a very large area or a very bizarre shape, having an iPad or a larger screen will help make that reporting quite a bit easier. So I just want to point out some of the limitations. This is in Wisconsin, a Picnic Point. For those of you familiar with Wisconsin, a popular hiking area, a real benefit and kind of a drawback of some of these polygons. Obviously if we were surveying this entire area between these 2 trails here, a point really doesn't do it justice. Well, we can zoom in and do a polygon and really represent that well. But one of the limitations of this polygon is the fact that if you're under a canopy where you really don't have good features where you can identify these, it's going to be a struggle for you to actually know exactly where you are by drawing it from those overhead pictures. And so that's something to keep in mind in using this technology. If the trail isn't there and you're following a trail, it may be a challenge for you to actually draw that polygon, but that's just the reality of using this piece of software. Okay, one of the other really neat features that I want to highlight is the ability to report species not found, and that's what we're calling a negative survey, and that's indicated by this icon here. I'm going to overview this, but simply what you can do is that you can delineate an area that you surveyed and you did not see a list of species. This, again, can be really useful information if you need to gather some of this information for dealing with volunteers and other things too. So I'm going to walk you through this process. A lot of this is some of the techniques that we previously have learned. When you click on that button, this is what comes up. Again, as before, you can adjust the date and time, like we discussed. If you say you don't get around to putting this in until a week later, you can adjust that. Then you have the ability to select a list of species that you surveyed for and did not find, and I'll go over that in a second. Again, there's an area that allows you to determine or add how much time you actually spent doing monitoring. So for collecting volunteer contribution, this can be important. And then finally, you get to document the area that you actually surveyed. So let's go through first the list of species option. If I was to click edit right here, this is what's going to come up as this screen. And simply, it's just a list of all the species that are present in the application. And so there's the opportunity for the individual just to touch that species, and then you'll see a check mark that that species has been indicated as a species that you were looking for and did not find. And I think the real key issue here too is that You only want people to select species that they were actively surveying for. I think we run into trouble if we do this at the end of the day and we go, well, you know, I really didn't see any tree of heaven, but I wasn't really looking for it. And I don't think we're really after that type of information. We're more interested in, I was out looking for Chinese yam and I did not find it. And so we really want to keep those negative species reported to a minimum, ones that we were actively looking for. When you're done selecting those species, you can just simply click Done, and it'll take you back to that main list, and then those will be listed there and associated with that negative report, as you'll see. Then if you were going to click the Edit portion when it said Delineate Area Surveyed, as you would see right here, what would come up would be a map very similar to what we saw, with actually identical to when we were demonstrating the polygon version. So that map would come out. You would have to draw a polygon. You could either do it with points or a sketch, and you just simply need to follow those directions that I went through, and that would actually show you that area that was actually surveyed. So again, very useful information. That information will be able to be passed on to those volunteer groups or the land managers who are in need of that information. And really, I think, adds another benefit and another area involved with the Great Lakes Early Detection app tool. Again, we can when you do save a report, it goes into the queue, and it is actually not automatically uploaded. So if you need to look for this queue logo in order to actually upload reports, both positive and negative reports, that I believe, and Chuck can fill in with some of the details, but I believe that has to do with the ability so it doesn't have to work with cell phone service. You have the option of editing these reports, or if you're comfortable with them as is, you can click on the upload button and they can actually be uploaded when convenient. So that allows you to work without service and upload later. If you're worried about using the memory from your plan, you can then go use it when you're back on the Wi-Fi system. So that's a really neat trait that we also have as well, and you have access to. And there are some other options that are out there as well. There's the More Options icon. Lots of information here that you can look at. I think the real key one that I would like to emphasize is this Feedback tab right here. And why that's important is if you are having some technical issues, we highly recommend that you send a response by clicking on that Feedback tab. And why that's really important, it automatically provides information to Chuck on the smartphone and the system that you're utilizing, and better helps him troubleshoot why it's not going on and how to fix the issue. And so that is the preferred choice for providing some feedback. If that doesn't work for you, we can always go with other routes, but that's probably the first route that we would recommend that you would go by. So kind of to sum things up, and then I'm going to turn it over to Kathy, is want to just emphasize that, you know, this is a really neat tool that allows you to report invasive species across taxa. We have over 100 species that are in there. If we don't have your species, let us know and we'll try our best to accommodate. If you get some experience with this, you can add a report in less than 1 minute. I can do it in less than 30 seconds. I was doing it over vacation several weeks ago, and it didn't even interrupt my hike with my family, so you can do it very quickly, and it's very convenient once you learn how to use this process. We've shown you some of the new functions, the polygon and negative survey, and we're hopeful that we can utilize those just to make your mapping functionality a little bit better and improve the experience. And there are going to be some new functions that are going to be available soon on the EDDMapS website. We're soon trying to get some of these polygon and negative survey features up and running on the EDDMapS website, because we realize that the screen size is one of the limitations, and so that'll be a neat feature that you'll be able to utilize in the future, and Chuck can give you an update on when that's expected, but I think it's soon. And then on the app, we also have an icon for state-specific invasive species lists. That's going to be available sometime later this year. I think that the big neat issue with that is some states have very specific invasive species lists that they want people to utilize, and so that's where they're going to be able to find that information, such as in Indiana too. So another neat resource that'll be available for you. So that's kind of a quick and dirty overview of the new and improved GLEDN app. Again, this is a work in progress. We're continuing to update this and fix these issues, and we're just really encouraging that people utilize this. If there's some functionality that you have of interest or have some ideas, let us know, because we're really open to making this as useful as a tool as possible without just totally overwhelming it so that it's too complex to use. So we're always fighting with those two options. With that, I'm going to get ready to turn it over to Kathy Smith. And Kathy Smith is with The Ohio State University. She's an extension forester. And I think what I have kind of asked Kathy to do is kind of highlight how she's been using it with some of her program. And I think it really shows you some of the diversity and the abilities on how you can use this in a range of different ways to be successful at both education, outreach, and just improving our understanding of these reports. So I'm going to go ahead and go on mute and turn it over.
Okay. Can everybody hear me? Hopefully. Okay. I thought I would just highlight a couple of things that we have gotten here in Ohio. One thing I will say that I kind of reiterate with what Mark said. When I talk about the app and have folks send records in, I really, really, really want a photo. If it's a photo and they take multiple points, I'm okay with one photo instead of 5 different photos. But we really have pushed the photo aspect of it, that we really want to see that photo just to verify and have that backup in case something is questioned later on. So a couple of examples of how we've used this in Ohio. This is a recording that we got of kudzu in southwest Ohio. We had put the app in front of some of our arborists as we were doing thousand canker training in southwest Ohio, and within 2 weeks I had a couple of arborists that had gone out and mapped several kudzu sites that we were not aware of in Ohio, which we're trying to really get a handle on before we have to deal with the kudzu bug. And so what I've got here is some key points that come from the report that comes in to one of the verifiers, which this one came in to me. I couldn't quite tell on a couple of the photos what they were looking at, and coordinated with one of our extension educators in that part of the state with the Latin longs, and Joe went and looked at it and got back to me and said, yep, it's kudzu, and so we put the dots on the map. So that worked really well. I think we've added, within a year, we've added 5 sites in Ohio that we were not aware of where we had kudzu, and so that has worked well for us. On the insect side, and this is really where we started our interest in the app, was we were dealing with Asian longhorn beetle, and how do we get these things early? Well, viburnum leaf beetle is one of those that isn't high on the radar screen for a lot of folks, but it really impacts our wildlife habitat in our natural areas. And our Ohio Department of Agriculture would like to know where the infestation is in Ohio, so their nursery inspectors, as they're working through the nurseries and looking at plants, know whether they've got an infestation close. And so this is another one on the insect side where we've had reports sent in with multiple sightings, and we've actually moved the front where the Department of Agriculture thought we had viburnum leaf beetle. We've moved it multiple counties south and west. And so that has worked well for us. And so you can kind of see for us it's come to a couple of things. The kudzu records, our educator that verified those sites in southwest Ohio, he's trying to work with the local municipalities to try to get the kudzu eradicated. There's one site that's on a private property, and it's actually the kudzu is outdoing the bush honeysuckle, and the landowner likes that. So that's kind of one of those things we're trying to work through and make them realize that the kudzu is not necessarily an improvement over the bush honeysuckle. But the viburnum leaf beetle stuff has really helped our Department of Agriculture. So that's been a good working relationship for us as we've used and moved the app around the state. For us, we really do need to get more folks using it. We've had a lot of downloads. I can track through our QR code here in Ohio, something like 2,500 hits on the QR code, but we're not getting nearly as many reports as I would like to see. So we have to keep pushing for folks to use it, and hopefully something like this that they can come online and take a look at will make them realize that it's a lot easier to use than maybe they thought. And that's all I have from Ohio at this point.
Thank you, Kathy, and thank you also, Mark and Chuck. I'm going to just leave some time now for questions. So if you have questions, you can type them in, and presenters, you can either unmute your microphone and answer by voice, or you can
I guess while I hear Chris Evans is typing, but I guess maybe a question that I just asked the group is how many people have, in fact, made a report using this application? Please say yes. Type in yes if you have. And I see that Chris has asked the question is, do records from this app go directly into the GLEDN database, and are they shared back with partners? And that's a complicated question, but the short-term version is they go directly into EDDMapS, and then EDDMapS shares that data into GLEDN via GISN, which is a common protocol. And so it's primarily entered into the EDDMapS feature, and then EDDMapS shares them. And when they get into GISN, what we're calling, then they're available to all the partner organizations if they so choose to pick it up, and many of them do. And I'm sure Chuck, if you're really interested, Chuck could give you a more detailed answer, but that's the essence of it. So it sounds like several of you have made some reports, and that's good. You know, I'm always impressed with how easy it is, but there just is a little bit of a learning curve in using this technology. And so I really recommend, and what our experience has been with our first detector network in Wisconsin, is that we can train people through presentations how to use it, but we really need to have field day events where we get them out on the ground and actually show them how to do that. And since we've done that, we feel we're going to get much better utilization of this application. So I think it's really a hands-on issue that we really just need to get them to practice it hands-on. So if people are in Wisconsin, you know, need some help, we're willing to help do some hands-on training to show people how to use this application. We're happy to do that, but I'm not certain if I have the budget to go to Ohio or other states that are on here. So I refer that to Kathy.
Well, I would say in Ohio it's the same way, is that if someone wants a training, we will gladly do that. We have added a section of the app into almost all of our woodland stewards classes. So if we're out doing tree ID and we come along something, we try to pull the app in and talk about how they can report things as they're out walking. And so there's plenty of us around here that can help folks. And we're going to try to focus a little more on some of that hands-on training this coming fall as we get folks into wanting to sit down and learn some things, and then be
Yeah, I think that it's just people getting comfortable with the new technology and having the right equipment too is another issue. I see that Chuck has chimed in here and said that they'll be adding soon is an unknown options for reporting species in the app, and I think that's a really important option because that allows, if it's not in the app, you can actually still use the app to cite it, the location, then you could go into your personal reports and update that, say the species isn't there, and update it with the species. I think that's going to be a real neat function that you have. Okay, I see Catherine Hollins had a question. If I save data on the app, can I then transfer it to GIS so I can make my own custom maps? I believe Chuck says, yep, you can download the data as shapefiles or GPX for garments. Good. Alex asks, can the member groups track their area's entries? If so, how do they tag entries? Is it through their own portal? And that's something we're working on, I think, and Chuck can chime in here as well, but I think our kind of hope is that you just encourage your members to sign in with a certain name, so attribute each member with it, so their EDDMapS login, say, is Wisconsin First Detectors Network. Therefore, we can sort all that information via that. That would be one option. And I think we're working on trying to come up with an easy way to download all that information for member groups, like you suggested, Alex. So there's no automated way now. You just need to contact us, and we can get you that information. I don't know, Chuck, if there's anything else you'd like to add. Sounds like he's typing, but it's something we've been talking about. I think, we're really excited about this because it's just going to make reporting easier for us and tracking our volunteer hours. So that's something we've set out from the get-go to do with this new technology. Of course, the limitation is their volunteers have to have a smartphone. Yeah, so Chuck's saying it can just get complicated, but we're working on it, I think, is the key. I know that other groups have set it up, and this is acceptable, I believe, to Chuck. Other groups have set it up where they just have one login for the entire group. So what you lose is the individuality to know which volunteer is reporting what, but you gain that you easily have access to all of those reports. So instead of having an individual person's name, you have a group for the registration. And so that's something that I know one group in Wisconsin is working on. All right, David has a question. When someone accesses GLEDN to get distribution info for a species, will the negative surveys that included in that species show up? No, they will not. That will currently, we have not figured out a way to get that into GLEDN. We think that there is an easy way, but to be honest, we're really targeting right now on automating that data sharing, so that's a little bit lower on the list. But you can go into EDDMapS and get that information directly through EDDMapS too. So currently that negative species information is not in GLEDN. We hope to get that in at some point, but it is available on EDDMapS. Yeah, it'll be there very soon. That's right. Yep, that's next on the list, is to try to get that website up to speed so it can deal with the negative reports and some of the polygon information as well. I see Chris is typing something, so we'll wait for Chris. Okay, Chris says, if a person wanted to use this as their primary field data collection method, can you expect the battery life to last a full day's use? I think it's going to depend a lot on the equipment and probably the settings that the individual has, the brightness and other things. So that would be a good question. I'm not certain. I don't know if Chuck has an idea, but maybe, Chris, you can try and let us know if it works. My guess is it's totally dependent on the individual's equipment and the settings they have for that individual equipment, as well as how old that battery is. So it's probably tough to say. Maybe Chuck here has a better answer. I know that, here he goes, says, I've seen individuals collect over 100 records in the morning and 100 in the afternoon from my iPhone. So, I think you can get, if you're ready to go, I think that it shouldn't be a big issue too. And I know that there are restoration companies that use this as their primary method for collecting data, such as IPC. They use the smartphone technology. So clearly they've used it and had tremendous success. So I feel like it can be used as a primary source. And yep, and Kathy makes a good point about the Samsung Galaxy Note. And I think that we talk about the iPhone a lot, but there are options. You know, there's lots of options on what you can utilize, pluses and minuses to each of these options too. So I just encourage you to look at which one you have access to and can afford and move forward with that. I think Chuck's thinking, which is right on, is just to create this platform that's available on multiple platforms so that you have options to choose from versus no options, which others have had. So, and it, you know, can depend on the cost. You know, cost is always an important feature as well too. I think that, you know, if I was looking to purchase something specifically for mapping, I think that something that has the bigger the screen that you can afford, the better, particularly if you're thinking you might want to use the polygon feature, because having that bigger screen is really an advantage to utilizing that if you want to do it remotely too. So that would be my 2 cents. But I think once we get it up, the ability to amend those reports on the website, I think that that will solve some of those issues. If you can get a rough sketch and then go on the website and correct those polygons, that may be the best option, particularly for large-scale infestations. I see we have David typing, so we'll wait for see what David has to say. But I think we're kind of nearing the ends here, so I think we can, if you have any questions, type them in now. Dave says, for the state list, will there be just a list, or where there'll be a noted list with, you know, pending noxious weed, etc.? I think I'm going to refer to Chuck on that one, but I know what little I know about this is certain states like Indiana requested that they had a very specialized list of species that they were interested in, that they wanted to track. And so they wanted to have the ability to actually say, these are, in Indiana, these are the weed species that we would like you to promote reporting on. And here he says that state lists will be broken into categories if the list has them. So I think that there's going to be some flexibility of what those categories are. It sounds like, David. Okay, I think we're going to get ready to wrap things up. If there are any other questions, maybe now's a good time to type them in. Otherwise, we'll sign off. And again, we will be recording this. So we have been recording this, so please feel free when that link comes out to pass that on to your respective groups so that they can get trained in this technology. And any questions, feel free to contact any of us.
Mark, Chuck, and Kathy, would you be willing to type in your email addresses so people can get in touch if they have more questions?
Sure, I'll do that right now.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end the recording. Thank you all again for attending, and thank you, Mark, Kathy, and Chuck, for helping us out today. The webcast should be available on the MIPN website, www.mipn.org, later today. Thank you.